the alchemical marriage. What does this mean? You guys have yourselves been through this class before, and it was a lot of information. So I'm going to try to not put so much information out there so that we're not overwhelmed with and really just get the gist of it. So we're looking at the outer shell and the inner shell of the egg. We are looking at us being the egg. We are looking at the outer shell as in the outer reality, the exterior, the earthly plane, versus the interior of the egg, which would be our spirituality, our mind, going inwardly and looking at things in a more mystical way, looking at things in the many layers that we are. It's like the more that you see the layers, the more you start to see the layers within yourself, and you start peeling back. Okay, what is at the yolk of it? What is at the center? Because at the end of the day, it always comes back to the center, the point of this. Like, why are we even looking at all this? It's because it's a transformation that happens within us. And so we want to see how this comes about, the history of it, a little bit of what is being practiced here or what is being done, and then go into the real meaning of Passover and what that means on a scale of the macro scale above and then the micro scale below. So let's get started. So the history. Let's think about where we are now. Like, it should be a time of great celebration for animals, for the trees, everything in nature. We should be celebrating the fact, like, we just came out of winter and spring is here. Like, we're excited. Everyone is excited. It's a time of rebirth. It's a time of renewal. It's a time where you could see all the animals just basically multiplying, the bunnies, the possums, right? The birds are chirping, the dogs are barking, right? Everything is happening during this time. This is a time of celebration. Now, in history, we have taken the literal layer and basically celebrated the exterior only. Covered in, oh, we're doing this for something spiritual, but in reality, it has been more of the outer shell than the inner shell, because if you look at society today, you can realize that this hasn't been helping much. The way that it's been taught, the layers that has been conditioned is not really helping us celebrate and be in our highest childlike curiosity or celebration feeling of, oh my God, it's spring. I want to go outside and play. I want to put my feet on the ground. That's how we all should be feeling, but yet that's not the case. So let's look at the fact that Easter or Passover, that we basically celebrate both, but why is there something called Easter in the first place? So there was a need to change a Jewish event, Passover, into Easter, because some religions are basically anti-Semitic, meaning wanting nothing to do with Jews, so anti-Jew. And then they organized their armies to kill the Jews, and that was called the Spanish Inquisition. So we had all these changes made. The name of Jesus was changed, well, basically to Jesus, the Greek version, and then we got Easter. So we are looking at the history of where Easter came from, what it is that we're celebrating, and then we're going to go deeper into it. Again, we're just peeling layers to it. So the unknown Easter tale, Cyprus, Greece, basically, you can find a temple to the Virgin Mother Mylitta. We're going to look at who Mylitta is. She is the Virgin Mother of Tammuz. You're going to hear Tammuz later in a scripture, but this is what they did historically way back, and it has to do with temple prostitution. So there are historic accounts of sexual activities in and around the Babylonian, where am I? Sorry, I switched. Babylonian temples, which have unduly influenced modern historians. One was written by the Greek historian Herodotus in the 5th century BC and purports to describe religious prostitution in the temple of the goddess Mylitta. The other was written by the Roman traveler Strabo some 400 years later, confirming Herodotus. So here are the two accounts of what was said. Every woman born in the country must once in her life go and sit down in the precinct of Venus, so Mylitta, and there consort with a stranger. A woman who has once taken her seat is not allowed to return home till one of the strangers throws a silver coin into her lap and takes her with him beyond the holy ground. This silver coin may be of any size. So the other one was the woman goes with the first man who throws her money and rejects no one. When she has gone with him and so satisfied the goddess, she returns home. And from that time forth, no gift, however great, will prevail with her. Such of the women who are ugly have to stay a long time before they can fulfill the law. Some have waited 3 or 4 years in the precinct. I know that's crazy. So we're looking at the celebration of the goddess of fertility, the goddess of Aphrodite. This is the generative principle in nature. So she was apparently worshipped among the Babylons, who gradually spread her worship through Assyria and Persia. So this is a mythological deity or deity, a cosmic symbol represented by the female portion of the twofold principle. So we're always going back mythologically to the planet of something. In this case, it's the planet of Venus. So we are looking at, back then, them celebrating this whole goddess of fertility, and the Virgin Mother of Tammuz is what we're going to look at so that you can start to piece together what it is that we're talking about. So Tammuz is the spouse of Ishtar, pronounced Easter. Tammuz would sacrifice his life for the good of the world, and he would then go into the netherworld, and every spring, at the spring equinox, Tammuz would be raised by Ishtar, who would go down and bring him up in a gray-colored egg, and he would come out of the gray-colored egg. So for 40 days prior to the resurrection of Tammuz, the women would put ashes on their head, and it was called Count 40. Nowadays, it's called Lent, as in the days are now lengthening. On the day of resurrection of Tammuz, the people would go down to the ocean and worship the sun, and now it's called the sunrise service. So the story of Tammuz and Ishtar is portrayed here in basically the scriptures. Then he brought me to the door of the gate of the Lord's house, which was towards the north, and behold, there sat women weeping for Tammuz. Then said he unto me, Hast thou seen this, O son of man? Turn thee yet again. And he brought me into the inner court of the Lord's house, and behold, at the door of the temple of the Lord, between the porch and the altar, were about 25 men, which in numerology comes down to 7, with their backs towards the temple of the Lord and their face towards the east, and they worship the sun towards the east. So this is all symbolic, and it's talking about basically the east side of us, the spiritual nature, because of course the west is our physical nature, the east is our spiritual nature in metaphysics, in mysticism. So when we're looking at all this and we have the word Tammuz, and we see that the story of Tammuz comes from this way, way, way back then, when people worshipped Tammuz and had this whole story of Tammuz and the Virgin Mother, then we start to ask ourselves, okay, what does this have to do? What is Tammuz? What is Easter? What does all of this have to do with what we celebrate? And why is it that we celebrate it that way? So Passover, let the children of Israel also keep the Passover at his appointed season. The appointed season here is spring. We are supposed to keep the Passover because we are passing over from winter to spring. And this is when it starts to get good. And Moses spake unto the children of Israel that they should keep the Passover. Again, another reference to keeping the Passover. Instead, we're celebrating fertility and rebirth. The foundation of religion needs to select between Passover and Easter, and it chooses Easter, which is another story of women who would show up at church, act as sexual objects, prostitutes. The only thing that women were required to wear was their Easter bonnets. And the temples would be filled with chicks and bunnies and eggs because it was all about fertility. This was a great holy day of creation, all based on sexual act, like the phallic worship. This was just part of it. Remember, it's celebration of fertility, and honoring the goddess of fertility is the main focus of what it was. So we have to think about what it was and what it has transitioned into, because when you look at the little eggs and the chocolate, the chocolate eggs and the bonnets, and you start to ask yourself, where did this come from? There were certain things that still remain. Now we're just incorporating the resurrection of Christ. So that's the next layer of all of this, because again, there's layers to it. Okay. All right. So what is the impact? Turning away from Passover and turning into Easter, we have brought basically plague, sickness, all kinds of hell on ourselves, on our children. Just look out the world today. The Passover is actually more of a very mystical theme. So Easter avoids keeping the Passover. It basically has you looking at the outer shell of the egg, looking for the egg, exterior. Go find the egg. Go out somewhere else to find this thing. When we all know that this thing that we're all looking for, which is the kingdom of God, is all inwardly. It's within us. But yet Easter is making us look outwardly, which is fine in the sense that we should be celebrating nature and look outwardly and the reproduction of everything growing and everything multiplying. Yes, that should be celebrated. But we also have to celebrate the inward part, because that's the balance of the physical and the non-physical. So the Passover, instead we celebrate rebirth outwardly versus inwardly. We pass over the bigger picture of what this entire thing is really about and ignore the coming of the new age. And I know that a lot of people talk about the new age and, oh, that is very new age. There's very many different definitions for the word new age, because really the new age is a new era. It is a new, we are 2000 years in a certain age. So if we are going to a new age, that is not bad. We're just shifting over into the next era, into the next age. Okay. So this is what we're going to look at. The Passover was ordained for the March-April equinox. So that's a cosmic Passover because it's cosmic in nature. It marks the passing over again from winter to spring. And so that is the age that we're in. It's marking the passing from Pisces to Aquarius. So there's the 2000 years that we are in. And basically every time you pass over, you are starting a new age. So there's the Passover of the cosmic Passover. There's the earthly Passover, which is, winter to spring. And then the smaller picture, which is the one within you, that Passover that marks the movement from the left side to the right side. So from the cardinal mind to the spiritual mind, the higher mind. And all of this is stuff that is not talked about. All we look at is the resurrection again of Christ as a historical event, as in, oh, look what somebody else could do outside of you, but that's just them and they perform miracles and you can't do that. But in the Bible, it says, Jesus says, whatever I can do, you can do better, So if you see that, you then have to ask yourself, well, I can't perform miracles. I can't resurrect from the dead. So what is it spiritually trying to tell me? And that's when we have to think about our own death and rebirth, our own spiritual death of the ego, and then our rebirth of the spirit. We all go through that, especially when we're having an awakening. We are constantly having a death of the ego and a rebirth, a death and a rebirth. And it comes in waves, because if it came all at once, we wouldn't be able to handle it. So it's just like the year, it's like, maybe, okay, now we're crossing over from winter to spring, and we're making this big new change. It's a new year spiritually. So we're starting, going all the way around. What changes are being made within me? What new changes am I making this time around in this new cycle? Okay, so tomorrow, because I know it's a lot, tomorrow we're going to go over what this cosmic Passover is, what the earthly Passover is, and what the man's Passover is, so that we can understand it. Again, peeling back the layers, we can understand it more in depth, and we can start seeing what is it that we're celebrating and what the real value of it is, so we can honor it, like truly honor the Christ within, which is what we need to look at. So anybody have any questions or comments? Or I know you guys watched it last time and there was a lot of information last time. So this time around, what did you think?
It all just keeps clicking.
Like, it makes more sense now?
Completely. And I'm just happy that I know what the meanings are and peeling back the layers, because then I can choose how I celebrate.
Right.
It's a
Kind of
choice.
like the Christmas thing.
Yes. Yes, very much so.
I mean, and I think that, of course, my dog starts barking as soon as I talk. I think that we all kind of, everybody feels a difference this time of year. You feel like you want to start spring cleaning, and today I looked out the window and I saw the birds grabbing pieces to make nests, and I was like, that's so cool. And they're making their homes so they can reproduce, and we all feel it. It's just, you see it and you do certain things that you should be doing, but also knowing that you also have to focus internally is so important, going within, and it's so cool to know that. And like you said, Michelle, celebrate maybe in a different way, not what people have told us. This is the way you're supposed to do this and go for Easter, but really embracing the season, embracing yourself, going within and learning about yourself and your body and how it is
How it
affected.
connects and how it connects.
Yeah.
Because that's the thing, is that as above, so below, right? On earth as it is in heaven. So we say that, but what does that mean? These constellations are, in the Bible says, they are in heaven. They are on the firmament. They are on the sorry. Why does this always happen?
Take a drink.
As I'm talking about heaven. It's above in the physical realm, but then when we look at the inner shell, we have our own heaven within us. So how it connects with the constellations that are in heaven, and then on earth, the constellations that are within us, and how it affects us, meaning the glands or the energy centers that are within us, but how it connects, right? And that's the part that's super cool, because then we see everything is connected and we are all one. So it's not a separation. We're not trying to separate. We're not trying to stop this or that. We're trying to unite. We're trying to create a union, a soup of all, above and below, outside and in.
even down to the body parts, that each zodiac sign represents a part in your body. So it's like, and if people don't know it, they don't even understand the connection. And that's what's so beautiful. Like, I mean, as above,
Mm-hmm.
so below.
Yeah, and that's what we're going to go over tomorrow, because we'll start getting into how it affects us physically and physiologically, and what Aries, the ram, has to do with the Lamb of God, and all of these celebrations that happen during this time, and then also looking at the sun passing over, and basically the alchemical marriage in the sky of the sun and the moon, and why it is the way that it is. Why the sun waits for the moon before they celebrate Easter. That's another thing, is that why does Easter always change, and why does it always have to be after the moon has reached a certain point? Because this is an alchemical marriage that happens in the sky, the same as it does in our mind, in our body. So I can't wait to talk about that tomorrow too.
I just want to say that I am very thankful that I have been in this academy learning for over a year, because I don't see things the way before, and we're in this season, and it's very religious, and so at the beginning, you feel, well, I felt that I was betraying, God or Jesus for starting to believe in these things. But now it's going through the mastery class and knowing myself and all the things and everything. It just makes so much sense. And I feel like this is it. I am in the right path. It's like, there's no other way, and everything you are teaching us, it makes sense. And it's not that it's right there in the Bible, but very down, into those layers that you're peeling for us and teaching us. And so now it makes sense. And now, like Heather was saying, now I don't get to see the seasons like before. I don't get to say, I'm sick of this winter. No, now I get to say, I am enjoying every season, and just getting the beauty of everything, because again, as above, so below, you see it out there and everything, but it's also within you, what's going on inside of you through all the seasons as well.
Mm-hmm.
So thank you. Oh my God.
Yes, of course. Yeah, that's awesome.
in you know in religion, I always felt so lost. Like in the Catholic religion, I was Catholic. Was raised Catholic. Lost, like some piece was always missing. Like I didn't quite get it all, and it's so clear and obvious when you really like
Break it down.
break it down. Yeah, and I don't feel I keep that verse, I am lost and now I'm found, or something like that, keeps coming to my head. Like I always felt like within me, I was searching for something more. And now I understand. Of course, there's still so much more. We are continuously learning, but I don't feel like I kept always feeling like a piece is missing, something's missing. And I don't feel that way anymore.
And
so
also,
that is, mhm.
No, what I was going to say is that being as Catholics, what Holy Week was really kind of like feeling you a sinner, right? More, it's like judging and judging. Don't do this, don't do that. Everything was like, it's against God. It's like, it's the not eating meat on the Lent, during Lent, right? It's not about that, but now I know. But
and why do you think it's fish that you can eat on Fridays? Because it was the Piscean years.
Yeah.
The fish.
Yeah. But really to be able to where we are and understand what you are, all these workshops, it's a lot. It's been a lot of learning, it's not easy. It's not gonna, this is not something that you're just gonna change like that, because we've been through this for a year, learning all this, and we'll continue learning much more.
And at first it's confusing because you're going against, you have the inner conflict of going against our own conditioning and our own beliefs. And then here you are with something contradicting, or maybe not contradicting, but something more that makes you think outside that box that they told you not to look at. And it's like most people, condemn or don't look at astrology because they think it's bad, or they whatever. And that's without looking at what it actually is, truly, the true meaning of it. And now that we've broken it down and we've looked at, dissected it more, it's like you see the other side and you go, wait a minute, I don't see anything wrong with it, because you get to discern for yourself what's good, what's wrong, what's bad, right? But it's been placed as like, oh, all of this, don't look into all of this. The real reason is Jesus. Okay, we're going to get into Jesus. We're going to get into another layer, but these are still layers that still exist and that still happen. And that, you can't take away, and you can't say it's a coincidence that thousands of holidays are amongst years and years and years, and not thousands, but you get me, out of thousands of years, you have holidays that all happen right here in the spring equinox. Magically, they just all were on March 21st or April, or Nisan 14, April. All of them that just happen to happen that way? No, it's because it's a cosmic thing, because it's an earthly thing, because it's the seasons. And so when you mix this together with the Bible, it's beautiful, because you start seeing the combination of all the layers and how it impacts you. So yeah, super cool. That was today. That was the first part. And then tomorrow we're going to do the second part. Yay. So join us back here in the Love Your Life tribe. And then if you want to join us in the Zoom to participate, just go to the QE Academy, QEAcademy.Love, and go to events. And then it'll be right there. The link will be right there for you to join us. So thank you guys for tuning in, and let me stop all these things.